Welcome everyone to another Intentional Success Monthly webinar. I'm your host, Tom Stimson, and today I'm gonna answer questions. That's all I'm gonna do. I've got a couple of things to talk to you about, um, to tee things off and just kind of remind you of a couple of the housekeeping notes as I often do. If you are new to this series, this is I usually teach content that I've put together. Today's a little bit different. But I am your host, Tom Stimson. I work with the owners and management teams for people of companies in the live events industry, and that's a pretty broad spectrum, everything from manufacturers, distributors, to dealers, to rental companies, to production rental, to creative companies, the whole gamut. If your product ends up in front of an audience, I'm the person that advises you on business. So thank you all for being here. This is being recorded, as you just heard, and you'll get an email later on today that says, hey, you can view the recording for the next 30 days. I'll have it up on the website shortly after this is over. Questions. This is a question format webinar. I need your questions. Drop them in the Q&A box. Anything at all is great. Feel free to introduce yourself in the chat to your fellow attendees. Say howdy from wherever it is that you're from. I'm in Dallas, Texas. We have lovely weather today. Share where you're from and get to know one another. So, one of my favorite quotes, anyone could hold the helm when the sea is calm. As a sailor, this resonates with me because it's real easy to learn how to sail in light winds, but you don't actually learn how to sail until you're in heavy winds. So we practice the fundamentals in light winds so that when the heavy winds come, we can exercise what we've learned to try and keep on course and stay safe. And that's where we are right now in business. You know, on a good day, we all know what to do. When everything falls into the right place, we're all good. It's just not that challenging. We know how to answer the questions. We know what to do next, but that's not what we've been going through really for the past 18 months. And it doesn't seem to be getting any more clear about what is going to happen, except, well, maybe it is. Maybe we're not listening to all of the signals. And that's part of what I will probably end up mentioning today on more than one occasion. So if you're having trouble holding course through difficult waters, maybe you were having trouble before the pandemic. Maybe you've always had trouble. You just never reached out and had the help. And this is a great time. I'm going to get off the slides here in a minute. So this is a great time to remind you, this is what I do for a living. I advise and consult and coach owners and management teams to get their businesses where they want them to be. I help you through the rocky spots. I'm that voice in your ear that says, yeah, try this, do this. You know, here's how other people do it. Here's how it would work in your company. And I help you get where you want to go faster, with less controversy, more people working and rowing in the same direction, all the sails trimmed for the same course. That's what we're looking for here, and I can help you do that. So reach out. Let's have a starting conversation. So I can learn a little bit about your situation. You can learn more about how I work and see if there's something that we can do together. Normally I bring this up at the end of the webinar, but we're a different format today. So next month's webinar will be about working in the in-between times. You know, how to do decision-making between, you know, where you are now and what you see coming. Last year, we had the same conversation because we were pivoting. We were pivoting from a in-person rental model into a streaming model, for instance, one of the many different kinds of pivots. But not all of your customers had made that pivot yet. So what do you do in the in-between times? Well, now we're in another situation where we're kind of going back and there's this hybrid and there's still streaming and there's in-person and lots of things have changed and we're still in that flux period right there. And so decision-making, you've got to be really good at decision-making to know how to make a decision when the signs aren't normal to you. This goes back to that rough seas visual that we just talked about. How do you make decisions in situations like this? And trust me, I've been helping people make decisions pretty much nonstop for the past 18 months. I can help you. Come watch this webinar next month and we'll get you moving. So we're going to move right into questions here. I've got a couple that have come up already. Let me stop here for a moment. You get full me, you get my whiteboard. We're going to freestyle. Let's see what we can come up with. I'm going to take one question from my list first, just to tee us off. And the question is phrased to me pretty much like this almost all the time. Tom, is there going to be another shutdown? Now, why are you asking me that? But in my opinion, is there going to be another shutdown? Yeah, there could well be. But my problem is not with the circumstances. My problem is with the question. So I want to talk a little bit about the question. It's the wrong question, right? You knew I was going to say that, didn't you? It's a binary question. It's not a strategic question. If there is going to be another shutdown, would you do this? Is a strategic question. If there's going to be a shutdown, will this happen? If I decide that there's not going to be a shutdown and I run my business this way, what's the worst that could happen? Now we're getting into something that's useful and substantive. And I want more of us to think that way. But the underlying question behind the question is, what do we do? It's uncertain again. We thought everything was going to be certain. We got the vaccination rolling out, everything's opening up. You know, it should be back to business per normal, right? Except that it's not, right? Yes, we're doing great on vaccines, except not everybody's getting them. We've opened up, awesome, except now more people are getting sick. Our numbers are creeping back up again in the US. I have clients all over the world. They're all watching what we're doing, going, gee, I hope we don't make that mistake. Okay, we're going to have a spike. We're going to have another one. Is it going to be like it was a year ago? Probably not. I'm the wrong person to ask about that. But I do expect things to go up. We've had some closings in California again. A lot of prudent thinking, a lot of prudent leadership is going, how can we stem the tide here and encourage people to get vaccinated? Well, let's cut off their access to the things that they want to do. As a parent, I see some value in that, right? You want to play video games? Well, then you better do these things first. So yes, there's going to be some sort of a spike. The question that we should be asking though is, what do our customers think? Okay. What do they believe is going to happen and how are they going to respond? Because regardless of what we feel or what we think, they're the ones who are holding the purse strings. And you're going to have three types of customers. You're going to have people who think that, nothing's going to change. They already expect to be some sort of hybrid event, or they just want to be full service streaming because they've decided it's not time to go back yet. They decided that half their audience will come back. They've decided to ignore the problem. And this is our biggest issue. So if we have people who are extremists like this, okay, who have no contingency, I'm trying to put some words in here for your sales calls. What is your contingency? If you do an outdoor event, what's the contingency for bad weather, right? We're comfortable having that conversation. What is our contingency if the venue that you've chosen for your 100% in-person event suddenly is only limited to 25 people per 10,000 square feet? What is your contingency for that? How can we accommodate that? Making those plans. So it doesn't matter what will happen. What matters is how you start thinking about it now so that you can anticipate the questions that your customers are going to bring to you. This is going to be fun today, I can tell you. All right. Hello, Scotland. Hello, UK. Hello, Argentina. Thank you guys all for being here. All right, from the Q&A chat here, and again, feel free to ask about anything at all or follow up to what I just talked about here. What are the titles of the people purchasing virtual hybrid meetings in today's market? Who handles buying now? Actually, that's a really cool question. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what we're talking about here is channel. Okay, the channel is who buys from you. Okay, the channel may have tiers. You may be experiencing channel disruption. You may be benefiting from it, or you may be losing from it. I'm going to get to the answer to your question here. Who's benefiting or who's losing out because of channel disruption. Right now, those middleman resellers, meeting planners in particular, who might have been bringing you work before the pandemic, are not bringing you work now, right? Middlemen are losing out. That is channel disruption. Their customers are bypassing them and they're coming to their main suppliers, which could very well be you, and coming direct to you. So you, the supplier. So what's happened is the people who were calling you before, meeting planners, coordinators, office managers, conference planners, may not be the people who are calling you now. Okay, because their job, they are gone, their job is gone. That role doesn't exist anymore, and it got pushed. The good news is it mostly got pushed up. Okay, it didn't get pushed down into the economic buyer organization, the corporation, the pharmaceutical company, who is no longer working with a conference planner because they've pulled that resource in-house or that responsibility in-house, and they gave it to somebody who probably was a vice president of something strategic a year ago, and now they're also in charge of planning their events. Okay. Now, the good news is they're not going to get their hands down into the weeds of all this. They're simply going to bypass some of these people, contract some folks themselves, cut out some of the chain of suppliers to do that. So, who's buying? Who are your customers? Well, corporations don't buy from you. Individuals buy from you. What I'm seeing in my clients is we're seeing a lot of people from their end customers who are in marketing. If they're a manufacturer, they're in some sort of product management, okay, which is often in the sales group, but very well may be in the marketing group. We're seeing an awful lot of IT buying, particularly on the streaming side. So the internal communications in a corporation, having company meetings, sales meetings, internal conferences, they've pushed all that to communications, which is under IT. So you might be getting, from a chief information officer or the VP of communications, something like that. Now, these are the people who are buying those meetings now, particularly if there's a virtual component to it. They're interested in having the right experience and the right platform. The main thing here is that these people are the economic buyer. These are the people who actually control the budget and can decide how to spend it. They used to spend it here to non-economic buyers who brought back a supplier list and say, here are the people I want to hire, here's what it's going to cost, and then would get approval from the economic buyer. The great news is now that you're going to be able to talk directly to the economic buyer. Now, the bigger question behind this is, why are you asking this question? Who are my salespeople supposed to call? Who am I supposed to be marketing to? Okay, that's important. Okay, your salespeople probably don't need to be calling anyone unless you already know the people in the corporations that do this. But what is important is that you can now bypass most of these people that you talked to before. And that's going to make some salespeople very uncomfortable because they're going to have to talk to somebody different. But you can now talk to the person that used to hire them. So if you're looking at events that are coming back that you've done in the past, go straight to the person or the representative inside the end buyer, the economic buyer that you used to deal with on job site. To say, how are you guys handling this now? Have you seen the things that we can do? Have you looked at our virtual platform? How can we have a conversation about this to help you do a better event? So we can reintroduce that. In terms of marketing, we want to market where your economic buyers live, not where your old economic buyers lived, okay? Where these people live. And they are looking at, this is career development. If I'm the CIO, I'm hanging out with other CIOs, okay? Are you qualified to go hang out with CIOs? If you show up at a CIO networking meeting and try and pass out business cards, Are you going to get thrown out? Yes, probably, right? However, if I'm going on to LinkedIn, if I'm sponsoring something, if I'm getting my name out in front of an organization that hosts CIOs, okay, then that has marketing value. So look at it from that standpoint. If I don't answer any of your questions completely, just stick another question in there and I'll circle back to it. So big thing here is look at the channel, look at how you used to be bought from. Okay, look at the titles of the people who used to hire the people who hired you before. And that's a great place to start. Be aware that IT has a lot at stake in internal meetings because they have compliance issues that they have to deal with, security issues they have to deal with. So you're going to talk to IT if you're dealing with a major corporation. Very short question here. Tom, how do you coach exit planning? I'm going to give you a very short answer here. All starts with the goal. Okay. So when we're dealing with exit planning, I'm dealing with an owner, the stakeholder, or a principal stakeholder, or a group of stakeholders. And the first thing we have to do is sort out goals. You know, what is their goal for their stake in this enterprise? And I will, it should seem self-evident, except it's not. I would say 80% of the people that I talk to have not really thought about it. They found themselves in a situation where they need to think about it. Maybe there's a health issue. Maybe somebody's offered to buy their company. Maybe they're trying to buy a company. You know, something has come up that's precipitated the need to talk about exit strategy. So we have to talk about goals, and goals are personal. Okay? This is not the same as business goals. These are personal goals. You know, when do you want to retire? How long of a boat do you want to have? You know, where is your beach house? I mean, we need to answer these fundamental questions. And how are we going to get you there? Okay. So if I'm going to coach someone, then we figure out what the goal is, and then we figure out what our starting point is. Okay. Starting points are also difficult conversations because, well, a lot of people haven't thought about what their ultimate goal is. A lot of people have thought about where they are right now, and they're not always right. It's like, oh my goodness, my business is worth so much money. You know, we did $10 million before the pandemic, so we must be worth $20 million because I heard that's what companies sell for. Or I get the opposite. Oh, you know, I just don't think we're worth very much. I don't know how anybody else could do this. I'm completely involved in my own business. It's just me. We have no value, and they're both wrong, right? I have worked with owners who came to me and said, you know, my business isn't worth $1 million, and 2 years later we sold them for $4 million because they didn't understand where value was derived. I worked with owners who thought their business was worth $5 million and it sold for $1.5 million, and they're lucky they got it. The whole point of having the exit coaching is that we want to improve whatever this condition is. Okay. And we can improve by raising the perception of value to something that's realistic, or mitigating the perception of value into something realistic. Because ultimately what we want is a closing transaction where the former owner walks away and they will remain happy. And that is much harder than it sounds to do, because no amount of money is going to make you completely happy when you sell your business. So thank you for that question. Let's see. Next question. All right. I'm glad this came up. This is a pricing question. So the angle on this question, the person asking this versus the ones that asked me the same question by email, is how do you deal with a client who's disputing or questioning an increased equipment rental rate for heavy demand times, October, November, right? Versus cheaper pricing, or I love the self-effacing or my willingness to provide cheaper pricing during low demand times. So how do you explain seasonal pricing to somebody who hasn't had to buy based on seasonal pricing before? We can logically explain it to most people by doing a comparison that when you buy a hotel room, I was looking at hotel rooms for Disney properties for my anniversary later this year, and was shocked to find the place we would normally stay was $1,500 a night, when I think the last time we stayed there it was 400. Wow, that was an eye opener. I think we can explain it in those terms. Is one way to approach this. The other way to approach this is to systematically change how you present pricing. So if I'm going to raise pricing, or I'm going to use a new pricing paradigm, and curiously, for most of you, I would expect that your equipment pricing should actually be going down and your labor pricing should be going up, but I don't know the business model of the person that's asking here. So I'm just going to assume that the right thing for them to do is raise their equipment prices, particularly during the busy season where there's high demand. If I'm going to put together a proposal and I'm going to do the normal things I do about the job, about the client, here's what we do, here's our scope, okay, and here's our pricing, and here's our terms and conditions, right? If I were presenting this before in a traditional rental model with line item pricing, right? I need to figure out how I can change that and still present basically the same information. So if you're in a rental-based business and raising equipment prices is the only option that you have, reformat how you do this. Now, this also means that we have to retrain the sales team to do it, okay? And when I present it to the customer saying, hey, thank you for coming back to us again. I know the last time you did this job, it was in June of 2018, and now you want to do it in November of 2021. Let me forewarn you, there are some pricing differences in what we can do today. So if I've softened the beach with that, we know that we have a huge change in our labor market, labor shortage, and I'm expecting questions about that as well. So we have this labor shortage issue, okay? We have a capacity issue that was created by the pandemic, and that because of the labor shortage, it has reduced our capacity, which means it costs more money to get my limited capacity out of there. So again, typically I wouldn't expect rental rates for equipment to go up, because we are an industry that has an overabundance of equipment, and it's much too easy for somebody to go shop around and find somebody else with the gear. Where we have control, though, is over labor. So if your ability to put the equipment into the venue with your talent and your skill and your people, that's where the value is created, not in the rental equipment. So presenting the numbers differently, here's all the equipment lumped together with a summary price, maybe by section instead of line item pricing. That's step number one. Applicable discount, okay? Your discount in busy season might be 0. In the trucking industry, you're not seeing discounts, you're seeing surcharges. I saw a quote yesterday with a 50% surcharge on mileage for a trucking order, because, well, they can. It's not that fuel prices are high. It's just that trucks and drivers are in short supply. You basically have surge pricing in the transportation industry. So you can apply that, say, hey, I don't have a discount during this time period. One more thing that you need to do in any transaction like this, though, is you need a terms and conditions kicker. Everybody wants to save money. Well, not everybody. Most people want value, but sometimes people want to save money. And if they're pushing back on prices to say, here's how I can get you a lower price. The job's not for 6 months. I need 25% now. I need 25% in 30 days. And I need the balance, 2 weeks before the event. And if you do that, I can give you another 10 points off the job. Okay. So it's just a matter of setting up a good negotiation, rather than saying, yes, if you confirm the job now and I'll give you a deposit invoice 30 days before the event. No, 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 no. The sooner you have cash in hand, the more control you have, even if it's 25%. And by the way, all deposits are non-refundable. I've done that webinar. I will do it again, I'm sure, but that's something that we need to take a look at. So I hope that begins to answer your question. Next. This is fun. I like this. Next question. Let's see. How best to market to the suppliers, rental houses who now need designers and engineering paperwork experts. All right, great. Freelancer question, gigger question. Somebody who is providing intellectual prowess. So this is this is not a shameless plug. This is really practical advice. Get my book, Demand. Demand was written really with the solo entrepreneur in mind. It applies to you. Digital marketing is what you need to do. How do you market to these people? Your enemy in marketing to the people that you want to hire you is friction. Okay, friction manifests itself in a lot of different ways. You know, how to find you, okay, how to contact you, response time to hear back from you. You know, can I get the information? Can I get a quote? Okay, these are the major hurdles. And oh yeah, then are you even available? These are the major hurdles that your production company clients are having with your supply chain. And I was a freelancer for many years. I still work with a lot of freelancers. All of my clients are hiring freelancers. The biggest problem they have is they don't know how to find anybody. Okay, are you findable? If you're a freelancer and you don't actually have a professional website, and I don't care how you put it together, if you can put it together yourself, but you need a decent looking website that says a little bit about you. Okay, we need about you. Skills and roles that you fulfill, and then how to get started. Okay. I need a button that I can click to send you an email to start the ball rolling, and you've got to be prepared to respond quickly to that. Okay. You need to know how to price, and very often your first inquiry is not somebody who's ready to hire you, is somebody who just simply needs to know what you cost. And you got to learn to get over that, okay? Because that's how it starts. So marketing yourself. Now, who do I do direct marketing to versus just digital word of mouth marketing? Digital word of mouth marketing, right now I recommend LinkedIn. Go on to LinkedIn, say, hey, here's me at my desk doing an AutoCAD 3D rendering for a client's event. Love to talk to you. Here's me switching a virtual event live stream. Love to talk to you. Answer questions, get a little bit of dialogue going. That stuff actually works really, really well. If I can get this email and I can get back to them, the people who want to buy from you do not want to talk. They're horrible about picking up the phone. You probably are too. Talk to them if you possibly can. Okay. Now, who are these people? Look at every major marketplace. Okay. If you're dealing with a corporate event staging company and that needs drawings, they need a video director, they need somebody to do scenic or lighting designs, graphics designs, whatever that might be, reach out to them directly and say, here's what I do. Can I send you some stuff over? Okay. There's no harm in doing that. You can find everybody on LinkedIn. You can find them on Facebook. You can go find their website and send an inquiry in there. But probably you already know somebody inside that organization. Okay. And right now, it's not 50 people, it's 5. So if somebody you know is working inside that organization, go to them and say, hey, here's what I'm doing now because your skill set has changed. Here's how to find out if I'm available. here's some basic quotes. Here's some typical jobs that I'm doing, because you need to know how to price what I do, because if they can't sell it for what it's worth, they can't afford to hire you. So we want to educate them about what it costs to hire somebody to do the kind of work that you do. And then, be willing to quote jobs. Okay. Give yourself a really quick way of quoting some stuff out. But having a couple of case studies saying, hey, yeah, we did this job. Here's what I did for them. Here's the general outline of the scope of work, and here's the price range. Okay. So that helps them understand how to deal with you and when to deal with you, because you don't want all of their work. You don't want to do AutoCAD and run house lights, I'm assuming. So a lot of direct contact. If your work, and a lot of folks in your position are going to full virtual, they only are working virtually. So they're doing drawings, they're doing engineering paperwork, that sort of thing. Certainly in the integration world, but definitely in the live events world. Just make it really clear, this is how I work and here's what I can do for you. And the nice thing is, if I were a freelancer today, I would have trouble, because I was a show site guy. I didn't have the soft skills that I could market in a virtual world. I wasn't a draftsman. I didn't know how to program anything. I just knew how to yell at people on show site. So if you have a skill set that is marketable on this that you can do from home, boy, just make it really clear from your website, and in your marketing, teach people how to do things better. Okay. One way to prove that you know what you're doing is giving information away, like I do. I'm giving you a free webinar. I know a lot more than what you're going to learn in this webinar. Put some stuff on your website that will teach the people that you're trying to get to hire you, so that they can do their job better, and they're much more likely to hire you. Good question. High level, when high level talent is available, should we hire them? Example, senior video producer, senior account executive versus hiring Showtex warehouse workers. Okay, let's just talk about hiring priorities. Okay. Let me preface this by saying that the elephant in the room in any staffing question is fear of no. We're all afraid to tell our clients no, we're out of capacity. Okay? We're all afraid to say that's going to be hard, we can't do that. We want to say yes to everything, because that's how we're going to get back on our feet again. And the fact is, you don't have the workforce available to do that. So you are going to have limited capacity, and there is no answer I can give you that is going to solve your capacity problem. If you suddenly found a hidden stash of willing workers that you could hire right now, you still probably shouldn't do it, because what did we talk about at the beginning? Okay. We've had lower pandemic cases. Now we're back up to higher pandemic cases. We're going to get shut down. We don't know what's going to happen. So putting people back on full-time is probably not a great idea. Embrace the gig economy. So workers that you need for anything that is below the line, anything that's cost of goods sold, you need a manager to run that group and make sure that we are planning and hiring appropriately for that. But after that, almost everybody is hourly. Actually, everybody should be hourly, on-demand hourly. Okay. Very few full-time, because full-time equals benefits, but you may have enough work for some full-time hourly workers with benefits. But what you probably need are part-time workers that you can schedule, who, oh, by the way, are going to work for your competition on days that they're not working with you. Try and be the company they'd rather work for, is all I can tell you. Okay. So there's a labor shortage. Okay. Your labor pricing in the past, to get on the cost of goods sold side, was a subsidized price. You were using the money you were making off of equipment to cover the money you weren't making on labor. So you were taking your labor costs and you were marking up 20%, and you felt guilty about it, when in fact you should have been marking it up 50 or 100% and thought about doing it even higher. I reacted the same way when somebody asked me earlier about raising rental prices in the fall. You should be raising labor prices. Labor is what's affected by demand. Your equipment is the same. It's much easier to tell a client, say, hey, I've got people available in October, but here's the price for those people in October. Um, People understand demand pricing. A plumber at 2 a.m. on Sunday is more expensive than a plumber at 3 o'clock on Tuesday afternoon, right? A plumber in an emergency is more expensive than a plumber who can schedule something in 3 weeks. Okay? We understand this as consumers, and so surge pricing or seasonal pricing or demand pricing in labor is much more understandable. But also embedded in your question, thank you very much, was account executives, okay, producers, okay, people who are involved in acquiring business. My general recommendation for event production companies, whether you are hardware based or you're talent based, if you're primarily focused on content, you're primarily focused on doing the live event, it doesn't really matter. You're a combination of technology, people, and knowledge provided for something that's going to happen in a specific period of time or with a due date. Okay. Your number one priority in any economy, but even more so right now, is the acquisition of good revenue, which means good clients or customers. So I am, for most of my clients, I am heartily approving hiring account executives or account managers, marketing people, producers, or senior project managers, all of whom can help us win business. Their primary focus, their primary value is delivered before the sale. Okay. If you're hiring producers and senior project managers because you will sell something, then I take them out of the equation. That's freelance. You hire them on demand. Okay. This is a big mindset shift for a lot of organizations who feel that anybody who's customer facing has to be an employee. How do we make that up? Your customers don't care, right? In your average corporation that you're doing a conference for, 70% of their workers are contract workers who technically are getting paid by somebody else. Nobody cares who people work for as long as they do the job well and represent you well. So the mindset that we have to have these people on staff is I think it's bad economic decision in most cases, because you do not have year-round work unless the primary purpose of these people is to help you acquire business, for which you do have year-round work. We should be acquiring business year-round. My litmus test for, is this a customer acquisition person or is this a job delivery person, is on the busiest day of the year, are these people available for a 2-hour conference call with a prospect? Are they available for a demo or a walkthrough, a pitch? And if the answer is no, because they're on show site, then you hired them to do shows. They are cost of goods sold. You should have bought them on demand. Okay. And when you do buy people on demand, by the way, they're going to cost more money in the short term. Job costs go up. Okay. They're going to go up. Get over it. That's why you need to raise your labor prices, because your cost of labor has gone up. You can't subsidize labor by having full-time people on staff that you only have 6 months worth of work for, but it makes your job costs look better during the 6 months when they're busy. That doesn't work. That doesn't fly. So we've got to get away from all of that. So prioritization, customer acquisition, business acquisition, getting the next job, so that when we get past the busy period, we still have busy afterwards. All right. Are meeting planning companies going to resume their usual pre-COVID role, or will they have to reinvent themselves? That's a good question, and I will tell you, after 40 years in this industry, we're very cyclical. And while we've never had a disaster that even comes close to this pandemic. We've had plenty of disasters, and we've had plenty of recessions and crises and things that made it difficult for the channel to do business. We've had channel disruption before. Meeting planning companies are going to find their way back in, and they are doing that. They're having to acquire different skill sets. They're having to deliver different value. Destination management companies are now having to be platform management companies. Okay, they will figure a way in because they are listening to their customers. What does that customer need? If you're not buying what I used to do, what do I need to do that you will buy from me now? And that's the fundamental question we should all be asking. You know, it's not, is there going to be another shutdown? Okay. What is it that my customers need me to be able to do so that they can continue to do their business? What do I have to change so that they can be accommodated? So I think the major meeting planning companies will do that. Independent meeting planners, like many freelancers, will have to go back to their roots, and they may have been doing conferences for 5,000 people, and they may be back to planning weddings because that's the work that they have available to them, and work their way back up until their corporate clients are coming back to them saying, I'm really tired of having my senior vice president of marketing completely bogged down in planning an event. We can hire a meeting planner again. Would you please plan this event for us? That will come back. What I want you to do is be sure that you've established a relationship with the end buyer that is unbreakable, that you have enough connections. Remember the bow tie? Okay. Traditional sales bow ties, I've got the seller and I've got the customer. I have one salesperson and one customer contact, and their job is to keep all the other people away from each other so that they can have this cute little relationship where they can both control who talks to whom. And this is a great way to lose business. Anybody who was practicing the bow tie effect before the pandemic has nothing to build back on afterwards. What you want to do is you want to take the bow tie, you want to turn it around, and you want to make it a diamond. And the job of sales and your client is to force all of their people to work with each other. And it's much harder to break the relationships with 5 or 10 people than it is between 2 people. And what this allows us to do is that if there was a meeting planner before that you couldn't get around, okay, that meeting planner might actually now be part of your team or part of their team. It doesn't really matter. As long as they're part of the glue that holds the 2 organizations together, instead of being the meeting planner here, whose job was to keep you away from their client. So this is classic channel disruption. If this was a meeting planning or some sort of middleman buyer, we want to move that person into the diamond. I don't care if they're working for your client or they're working for you, but they are subordinate to the entire project. That's where we want to be. Speaking of reinventing oneself. Done. Okay. As an owner, I'm more concerned about a smaller labor pool available in the fall with a short selling cycle brought on by COVID uncertainty. It's hard to book labor far in advance right now. Yes, it is. It's really hard. I touched on this, but let me hit this one a little bit more head on. You're going to have a small labor pool. Now, the labor pool is coming back when the work is there. There are many people who would rather be gig workers than wherever it is that they're working right now. So many of them will come back, but not all of them will. We have to, have the work that they want, right? We have to pay them fairly. We have to treat them well, right? We have to give them as much notice as possible. But we're seeing some short selling cycles. Clients are going, well, we were going to have a hybrid meeting, but it looks like we're going to open back up again. We're seeing this in Canada right now. And all of a sudden, we're quickly trying to turn our streaming meeting into an in-person event very, very quickly. And the labor pool is not there to back it up, but we've promised to do the job. It's kind of a nightmare. So that's a one-off situation. Our labor costs are going to go up when we do that. Okay. Hopefully we had some terms and conditions that would help cover some of that, but let's at least capture some change orders so that we can help pay for it. Smaller labor pool. If you look in your crystal ball right now, you're going to tell me that you don't know how busy you're going to be in September because you've never had a post-pandemic September before. So you have nothing to base it on. And you've had some inquiries and you have very little confirmed, but all of your inquiries are really coming in much too last minute. So you're completely uncertain about what September is going to be like. Great. If you are uncertain about that period, okay, strategy is engineering what we want to happen based on what we think will happen. If we think what we know now is that we're going to have $1,000 a month, what we hope we would have is $1 million a month, what we are likely to have is a $250,000 a month, okay, and we think that's likely, that's what we would like to happen, and we think it's reasonable, then I need to figure out how I'm going to staff a $250,000 a month, okay? At this point, as an entrepreneur, you're effectively gambling. Now, if you gamble and you have a $300,000 a month, you'll probably win. If you gamble and you have a $125,000 a month, you'll probably lose. But that's what gambling is all about. You need to decide what you're willing to gamble on. Whatever that number is, if $250,000 is aggressive or conservative doesn't really matter. What matters is that you've booked and secured labor. Well, I don't know what jobs I'm going to have. That's okay. You know, September is going to be a $250,000 a month. So what's the labor that you need to have? It doesn't mean that you're not going to turn down business. It means that you're going to create a capacity for a well-distributed $250,000 a month, which might mean you need to hire 5 people for 30 days. And you can go to the marketplace and say, hey, I've got 30 days of work for you. Go back to your old employees and say, yeah, I know I was paying you $17 an hour before, but I'm going to pay you $28 an hour and guarantee you 160 hours over 30 days with the potential of overtime. Well, maybe they'll take it. And now you've got a workforce that you have to sell into. And this is no different than how you were doing business before, because you had too much overhead before, you had too many people on staff before. The only difference really is that you probably had a better understanding of what September was going to look like, right? So it comes back to your crystal ball. What does your sales pipeline look like? What are the trends that you've picked up from the past several months? And you're going to have to use some intuition to make a decision about what you're willing to do. And if you're completely not confident and your gamble is not a gamble at all, you say, hey, we'll do $50,000 worth of business, okay, but I only need one extra person, except for every once in a while, okay, then you secure a person, all right? There's no other way to go about this. It's all based on what you're willing to risk and what you think is going to happen. Labor pools, there are small labor pools. We're going to have to be more creative about that. We're going to have to be more selective about that. I managed labor for a long time. You know, I did theater in college, and I did theater after college. I'm used to working with unskilled workforces. I ran a staffing company. We'd bring people on, we would train them on the job, working on your shows, pushing road boxes and conventions. I know you can do all of this. One person can make 10 people work like 20. Okay, I'd be focusing on having that one person who knows how to run a crew and train quickly and not get bogged down doing the work themselves. And you can have a less skilled workforce. All right, a little bit all over the map there on that answer. Let me wander over here to chat and see if you guys are talking about the color of my shirt or anything like that. No, good. All right. So some alternatives to full-time workers while we're on the labor subject. Okay. So before, you may have had a warehouse crew. You had 5 guys working in their warehouse. They had a 40-hour work week. And then they got overtime because they worked nights and weekends, or maybe you scheduled them a little bit flexibly, but the fact of the matter is they were all expecting 40 hours a week and you guaranteed them 40 hours a week. Um, and then you hired some freelance folks as well to do that. This model hasn't really changed, but I want you to think about this because these people were effectively full-time on demand. Okay. All hourly workers are scheduled and managed, which is actually the definition of a non-exempt worker, right? They are supervised. So just like the retail industry, nobody comes to work because they're available that day and they felt like working. They came to work because a manager scheduled them. So nobody comes to work at your place of business because they're an employee. They come to work because their supervisor scheduled them. So we need to manage our crews, even our full-time crews, this way. Part-time on demand. Okay. It just means that I'm going to work in the US. It means I'm going to work less than 1,000 hours a year, which gets me under the benefit threshold. I'm not a labor attorney. I'm not a labor advisor. Go check your rules where you are and what applies to you. But the fact is, we can run part-time workers with minimal benefits, but we just have to be cognizant of how often we're booking them, and we just have to track that time. Okay. Now, there's nothing that says, big deal, this part-time worker is really good and they work so much they have full-time status. They're still full-time on demand. You still don't have to pay them if there's no work for them to do. And I'm not trying to be, the super business owner advocate. I'm very much a labor advocate. What I want is fair work, good working conditions, and good benefits for these people, because we are not an industry that is for everyone, right? We're weird. And you need people who don't want to work the same schedule every week. They don't want to see the same place of work every week. They want to do new and interesting things. They want the excitement of being close to the technology and the events and the talent and all the stuff that we get to do. And that's what's attractive. It is also going to be a dangerous industry. So we need to pay well for this industry, which means we need to charge well for this industry, which means stop undervaluing those people. Now, you can also move into the freelance world, and there's no difference between a freelancer and a part-time employee, even in terms of how you pay them, because you can pay a part-timer contract, you can pay a freelancer contract. I don't want to get into all the rigmarole of that, but freelancers will typically work for multiple companies. And you can also bring in a freelancer for a contract period and say, hey, I'm going to book you for this month, which is what a lot of you are having to do right now. Now, any self-respecting freelancer is going to look at you going, I don't want to work for you for a month. I want to do your good gigs. I don't want to do your other gigs. And they're going to turn you down, or they may say yes. It really depends on who you are, the type of work that you can provide them with. But when I was a freelancer, if somebody come to me and say, Tom, would you come work for me for 2 months because we're really busy? I don't know what jobs you're going to be on, but there's a good chance you're going to be running house lights. I don't want to do that. So I want to do stuff that I want to do. That's why I chose this career. So don't be surprised if you get turned down, or they don't want to schlep gear in your warehouse as a professional freelancer. And just remember, as I've said before, in all of these scenarios, your job costs are going up. So change your attitude and expectation about job costs. The good thing about your job costs going up is that we just brought your overhead costs down. And I will take lower overhead costs any day of the week, because overhead is forever. Follow-up question to the bow tie. Can you talk a little bit more about that? There are people in my organization that really want to be the person managing all of that. There are personalities out there that resist this. Relationship sellers. It's my relationship with the client. I want to protect my relationship with the client. I don't want it to look like I don't want to be asked to share my commission because more people touch the job. There's a whole lot of dysfunctional reasons for resisting the diamond effect. And there's a lot of dysfunctional reasons. I can't think of a good reason for wanting to keep this scenario. Okay. If you have engineered a commission structure or a recognition structure in such a way that this is favorable, then we have some work to do and we need to fix that. I've never worked with an organization where they weren't better off by having sales and the customer pushing all of the team together and creating those bonds. A salesperson who can do this to me is far more valuable than a salesperson can do this, because anybody can be a roadblock. That's what this is. This is just a roadblock. Roadblocks are easy. So are you a liaison? Sure. You're a liaison. Does it mean that you're doing some of the work? Well, if you are doing the work and not just a liaison, then you're not actually in sales, right? You're one of these people who's also trying to do the sales role, which creates another set of problems. So to the person asking this question, can you talk about reversing the bow tie? I can imagine some personalities in buying organization would prefer not that, looking at their job as being the liaison. Look, the customer doesn't want to do more work. This is a way for the customer to do less work. Salespeople, in theory, should not want to do more work. This is a way for them to do less work. They're going to bring the organizations together. And I'm also making the assumption that we want to do business with this client again. And this is a way to guarantee that we're going to do business with them again on the next project. Okay. Figure out what's the function of it is. You may have some customers who want this. Okay. Confidence, value, control customers. We've heard me talk about the different buying styles. Okay. This is a value control buyer right here. A customer who wants this is a value control buyer. They think they're the ones that are bringing all the value to the job. They're going to micromanage the heck out of it. And gosh darn, if I never, ever have to deal with one of those types of customers again, I will be a very, very happy person. These were the bane of my existence when I was in this role here. Okay. And you can make these relationships work better if we can avoid these people. And it is possible to convert them to understanding and seeing the value of this, which is mostly based on trust. So, last question here. Share your thoughts on 1099 versus W-2. If independent contractors, you require them to have insurance. This is a tired question. We shouldn't be asking this question anymore in 2021. We have labor laws. Follow the labor laws. Okay? If somebody's 1099, yeah, if you want to protect yourself from the Department of Labor and the IRS and your insurance company, they should have workman's comp. They should have liability insurance. They should be independently incorporated. Okay? That would be great. I would rather convert these people to be W-2, where I can have control over their work. But if I'm hiring somebody to be a draftsman on a project who is in charge of their own work schedule, okay, there's no reason they can't be 1099, but they should also be incorporated. They should also have general liability and workman's comp, as I do. So it's not either or, one's not better than the other. It's simply using the right one in the right situation. If I am putting workers onto a job site, okay, I'm very inflexible on this. They are W-2. You can argue with me all day long, and you can do whatever you want and whatever you can get away with. But the very first magazine article I ever wrote back in probably 1999 was on this topic, and I have not changed my opinion in over 20 years. So, all right. So we are out of time, folks. This has been a hoot and a half. I hope it's been valuable for you as well. And we'll get to do this again. I'll do this once a quarter, perhaps, or every 4 months or so that we can get our questions out of the way and then get on down the road. So that's it for me. Thank you again. I'll have the recording out on this soon. We will see you again next month.